They say truth doesn't shatter. It bends quietly until it breaks. And the day mine snapped was a Monday. Of course it was. The conference room was too bright. The kind of light that made everyone look tired and guilty. I was halfway through my coffee when Grant, my new director, decided to turn my career into a case study in humiliation. "Laura," he said, smiling that corporate smile that never touched his eyes, "you missed the shipment deadline by 3 days. We can't afford mistakes like that." The room went still. I froze, mug in hand. "I didn't," I said, steady but confused. "The deadline was Monday. You moved it from Friday yourself." Grant tilted his head with polite pity. "Did I? Check your notes." My throat went dry. I flipped open my planner, the same leather one I'd kept since my first year at Meriton Logistics, back when the company still believed in paper trails. There it was, in red ink. Delivery due Monday, confirmed by Grant, 9:32 a.m. But when I pulled up the email thread, the message was gone. Not archived. Not moved. Deleted. The silence stretched thin. Someone coughed. Grant sighed the way saints do when mortals disappoint them. "I know you've had a lot on your plate lately. Maybe you misheard." A polite chuckle rippled through the room. Just 1 or 2 people. But it was enough. The floor tilted beneath me. 15 years at this company. Never a warning. Never a missed deadline. And in 10 seconds, he'd turned me from meticulous to mistaken. Gaslighting doesn't start with shouting. It starts with suggestion. When the meeting ended, Grant clapped me on the shoulder. "Don't worry about it," he said cheerfully. "We'll tighten things up next time." I smiled back. Then I walked to my office, locked the door, and stared at that planner until the lines blurred. On its last page, I wrote March 7th, 8:14 p.m. First sign he's altering reality. It didn't happen all at once. Gaslighting never does. It's a slow leak that drains your sense of self before you even notice. 2 weeks later, he came by my office with a coffee cup and a lie. "Hey, can you pull those client metrics I asked for yesterday?" "You didn't ask for any metrics," I said. He chuckled softly.
"Sure I did."
You even nodded. "Maybe you forgot to jot it down." Then he left, whistling. By noon, he'd told upper management. I'd missed a verbal request. HR emailed me a friendly reminder about improving communication habits. That's how it starts. Death by 1,000 edits to reality. Grant wasn't loud. He didn't insult me. He didn't need to. He just changed one fact at a time until everyone saw me through his version of events. When he first joined, the office had adored him. Younger, polished, full of ideas. He spoke in phrases lifted straight from business books: synergy, efficiency, alignment. I called it management by thesaurus. He'd ask for my help. "You've got the historical knowledge, Laura." Then rephrase my ideas during meetings and call them fresh direction. I laughed it off. Everyone did. Until he started erasing me one email at a time. First my deadlines, then my authorship, then my credibility. Denise from finance noticed before I did. She stopped by my cubicle one Friday. "He's grooming you," she said bluntly. "For what?" "For failure. I've seen his type. Polished men who weaponize doubt. They'll make you apologize for being right." I laughed. "You sound dramatic." "Keep laughing," she said. "But keep notes." That night I reread my planner. 8 incidents in 3 weeks where Grant had changed details after the fact. Each one small enough to be deniable, big enough to corrode trust. I started to wonder if maybe I was slipping. 41 isn't ancient, but in a company obsessed with young energy, it might as well be. Maybe I had misheard. Maybe I was tired. That's how they get you. Not by lying, but by making you doubt you can tell the difference. The following Monday, he called me into his office for a quick alignment. "Laura," he began, tone dripping with empathy, "there've been concerns about your attention to detail." "From whom?" I asked. He smiled that patient smile again. "Let's not make this about blame." He listed a handful of incidents: a typo in a report, a missing attachment, a meeting I'd supposedly forgotten. All fiction. When he was done, he leaned back. "Maybe it's time you mentored some of the younger staff. Step back a bit." Less pressure? I nodded. You think I'm burning out? He smiled. I think we all get there eventually. That was the first time I realized he didn't just want me gone. He wanted me to help him push me out. That night, I called my friend Karen from HR. She listened quietly, then said, "He's gaslighting you." I laughed bitterly. "You sound like a true crime podcast." "I'm serious," she said. "He's rewriting the past, making others believe his version. You're on step 2. Step 2? Step 1 is confusion. Step 2 is isolation. Step 3 is resignation. What's step 4? Unemployment, your choice or his, Linz." Then she added softly, "Keep receipts, Laura. Every email. Every directive. Write it down. All of it." I looked at the planner on my desk, its pages curling, ink smudged. Everyone teased me for still using it. Now, it was the only thing in the office that couldn't be rewritten. Started writing down everything. Grant. Move the presentation to Wednesday. Me. Confirmed via Teams. 27 p.m. Grant. I never said that. Me. Planner. March 16th, page 42. Soon, I stopped trusting memory altogether. My truth lived in ink now. I didn't confront him. I didn't even let him know I noticed. I just documented, quietly, obsessively, relentlessly. By April, I'd logged 26 incidents. Then came the 27th, the one that almost ended me. He asked me to prepare client cost data for the board preview. 3 days later, the CFO emailed me. "Why are your figures inflated by 12%? My file was correct. The copy on the shared drive was not. Version history? Deleted. That afternoon, Grant appeared at my door, arms folded, sympathy polished. "The CFO's upset," he said. "You might want to own the mistake before this escalates." "What mistake?" He smiled. "You'll see." He walked away whistling the same tune as before. That night, I scoured backups. Nothing. Then I remembered an old USB drive, my first-year backup, still plugged into the desktop's legacy port. When I opened it, I found it. The untouched metadata, modified by G. Thomas AmeritonLogistics.com, 1:17 a.m. He hadn't just edited data. He'd falsified corporate records. I printed it, slid it into the planner. Wrote, April 12th. He crossed from manipulation to fraud. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel afraid. I felt awake. The next morning, HR called me in for clarification. Grant was there, sitting smugly with a folder of papers he'd probably written himself. "Laura," said Rebecca from HR, "we've noticed irregularities in your reporting. We're not making accusations, but..." "Of course not," Grant interrupted smoothly. "We just need transparency." I kept my face neutral. "I understand." Rebecca pushed a form toward me. "We'll just need your signature confirming you understand the investigation." I signed, smiled, walked out. Then I went straight back to my desk, printed everything, and called Karen. She connected me with Mark Jensen, an employment lawyer with the calm of a man who'd seen too many corporate sins. We met at a diner that smelled like burnt toast and stale coffee. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said quietly, "You're describing workplace gaslighting and data tampering. That's not just unethical. It's illegal." He leaned forward. "Do not confront him. Let him keep talking." "Let him build your case for you," I nodded. "So I just wait?" "No," he said. "You document. You build your box. And when he steps inside it, you close the lid." That night, I went home, opened my planner, and wrote May 3rd, the day I stopped doubting myself, and beneath it, objective. Let him write his own confession, because if there's one thing narcissists can't resist, it's their own reflection. Revenge, I learned, isn't chaos. It's structure. You don't win by shouting the truth louder. You win by writing it down better. After that meeting with Mark, I didn't quit. I didn't even argue. I just went quiet. That kind of quiet that makes people underestimate you. Every conversation with Grant became an entry in my planner. Every favor he asked for went straight into my timeline. Every late-night edit, Every directive, every "you must have misheard," logged, time-stamped, cross-referenced. Mark called it building the box. "You're not proving innocence," he said. "You're proving pattern." That's what courts and boards understand. Patterns. By the third week, I had so many pages filled the planner wouldn't close flat anymore. Its leather spine bulged like it was breathing. Karen started meeting me after hours. The HR office was half dark, the vending machine humming like a tired witness. She'd whisper updates from her side of the company, the small things Grant was doing to keep control. "He's planting stories," she said one night. "Telling people you're overworked, emotional." "Of course he is," I said. "He needs me unstable to make himself credible." She sighed. "You know most people in HR would tell you to let it go." I smiled. "Good thing you're not most people." Then she slid me a copy of Meriton's Data Integrity and Ethics Policy. Highlighted in yellow, any alteration of corporate data without authorization constitutes a breach of fiduciary trust. "Memorize Section 6, she said. "If this goes to the board, they'll care more about fraud than bullying." And just like that, the battle changed language from emotion to liability. At home, my husband noticed. "You're calmer," he said one evening over dinner. "I'm cataloging," I replied. He smiled. "You sound like an archivist." "More like a historian," I said. "I'm documenting the truth before someone edits it again." "It won't fix him," I said. "But it'll fix the record." I started baiting Grant gently, leaving early versions of files in shared drives. Ones with small, deliberate mistakes. A missing zero here, a mislabeled column there. Within hours, they'd be gone, replaced by his corrected versions. The timestamp's always the same: 1:10, 1:12, 1:17 a.m. It wasn't impulse. It was compulsion. He needed control the way other people need oxygen. Every time he fixed one of my mistakes, I captured the metadata. By June, I had a portfolio of his fingerprints. I didn't gloat. I didn't share it. I just let the box fill itself. When the board scheduled an internal audit, I almost laughed. Grant thought it was his chance to clean house, meaning me. He didn't know the house had already been rewired. Karen texted me late that night. "Audit July 9th. He doesn't know." Perfect. That weekend I met Mark again. We sat in the same booth at the diner, the same lukewarm coffee between us. "You ready?" he asked. "Yes." "Then remember, in that room, you're not the victim. You're the evidence." I wrote it down as soon as he said it. July 6th, don't raise your voice. Raise your evidence. The morning of the audit, the office buzzed with nervous energy. Executives wore their best suits. Assistants carried binders like shields. Grant looked relaxed, smug even. He greeted the auditors like old friends. Happy to assist, of course. I've been concerned about data accuracy for months. Rebecca from HR sat beside him. Across the table, the CFO, the compliance officer, 2 external auditors, and me. Rebecca started. "We're reviewing discrepancies in Q2 data reports. Grant, since these originated in your department, please begin." He stood. "Thank you, Rebecca." He spoke smoothly. As always, concerned, measured, charming. "We value transparency at Meriton," he said. "But unfortunately, some miscommunication led to significant errors. Ms. Bennett has been under stress, completely understandable after so many years in a high-pressure role. But some of her reports were altered, and I take responsibility for letting it slip through." He sat down, serene. The man had just framed me for fraud in front of the board and smiled while doing it. Rebecca turned. "Laura?" I opened my planner. It looked small on the vast oak table, but when I began to read from it, the room stilled. "April 10th, I said evenly. "Original file submitted, unaltered, backed up locally. Metadata recorded." I slid a printed report across the table. "April 11th, 1:17 a.m. File modified. Same file name, same folder. Modified by G. Thomas and MarathonLogistics.com. Grant laughed lightly. "That's impossible. Our system doesn't even—" I interrupted. Legacy drives retained metadata before migration. I never disabled mine. The CFO leaned forward. Show us. I handed over the USB. The screen flickered to life. At the bottom of the spreadsheet, modified by gthomas@marathonlogistics.com, 1:17 a.m., the room went completely silent. Grant, said the CFO carefully, why were you editing corporate data at 1 a.m.? He opened his mouth, closed it again. I was reviewing reports. She must have tampered with the timestamp? I asked quietly. Then you'll want to explain the security footage. You swiped into the building at 1:09. Rebecca's pen stopped midair. Grant stared at me, the color draining from his face. Mr. Thomas, the auditor said, you're aware falsifying financial data is grounds for termination, correct? He didn't answer, so I flipped to the next page of my planner and kept going. The falsified numbers you sent to the board? Here's the email trail showing my version. Accurate, time-stamped, archived. And here, I slid another sheet, your edit, attached 3 hours later. Laura, Rebecca started, that's enough. No, I said calmly. That's just the beginning. I reached into my folder, pulled out a stack of printed pages, timeline of edits, G. Thomas. 27 separate manipulations, each cross-referenced with email logs, system entries, and calendar invites. One by one, I placed them on the table like cards in a magic trick. Except this time there was no illusion. When I finished, the table was covered. Then I said quietly, every single incident verified. Every single one backed up off network. The CFO stared at me, then at Grant. Effective immediately, he said. You're suspended pending termination review. Grant stood, his chair screeching back. You can't, this is a setup. She's been unstable for months. Ask anyone. Rebecca sighed. We already did. He looked around, desperate for support. No one met his eyes. The same people who once laughed at his jokes now stared at their notes, silent. He turned to me. You did this to me. No, I said. You did it to yourself. I just wrote it down. Security escorted him out. The door closed. The silence that followed felt like absolution. After the meeting, people passed me in the hall quietly, but their nods meant more than applause. One whispered, "Thank you." Another left a post-it on my desk. For all of us who thought we were crazy. I kept it tucked inside my planner. That night, I opened to the final page and wrote, July 9th, the audit ended. The silence broke. Then, for the first time in months, I closed the planner without locking the drawer. The next morning, HR asked me to step in as acting director of operations. Just until the dust settles, Rebecca said. I agreed, but with conditions. Every directive in writing, every edit traceable, every meeting recorded and shared within 24 hours. She hesitated. You're turning the company into a surveillance state. No, I said. I'm turning it into an evidence-based workplace. Karen laughed when I told her later. You're building a firewall against people like him. Not against, I said. After. By the end of the month, the change was visible. No one gaslighted anyone anymore because there was nothing left to hide behind. Transparency had become policy, not courtesy. The board called it the integrity framework. I called it peace. The weeks after Grant's firing passed like slow sunlight after a storm. People still moved quietly, as if afraid he might reappear from some corner of the office. But the energy had shifted. Conversations became clearer. Deadlines stopped moving like ghosts. Truth, it turned out, worked better than fear as a management style. Rebecca called me into her office one morning. She looked tired but relieved. The board's impressed, she said. They want continuity. Will you accept a permanent promotion? Director of Operations. I hesitated only a second. Yes, but I want to implement my own framework. She smiled faintly. You mean your planner system? I nodded. Something like that. But digital, transparent, immutable. That was how the integrity framework was born. Every project directive now required written confirmation. Every data alteration triggered an automatic email to 3 people. Every meeting summary was published within 24 hours. No more whispered confusion. No more, maybe you misheard. The day the policy launched, people looked nervous at first. Then Denise from finance clapped. Then Karen. Then the whole room followed. In the following months, productivity rose 22%. Turnover dropped. Complaints to HR nearly vanished. Grant's ghost still haunted a few files. Old spreadsheets he'd renamed, comments in margins with his initials. But bit by bit, those faded too. The company he'd manipulated into chaos was becoming something new, transparent, solid, verifiable. One afternoon, while clearing out his old office, I found his silver pen. The one he'd used to sign off on falsified reports. I turned it over. His initials, GT, engraved in the metal. For a moment, I imagined him standing there, smirking like always. Then I dropped the pen into the recycling bin. Even lies can be repurposed, I murmured. A few days later, the board emailed. Subject, appointment confirmation. Laura Bennett is hereby promoted to Director of Operations, effective immediately, no ceremony. No champagne, just a quiet correction in black and white. The way truth should be. When I walked into my new office, the old nameplate still read G. Thomas. Facilities hadn't had time to replace it yet. I traced the letters with my finger. Not for long, I whispered. On the desk sat my planner. I hadn't opened it since the audit. Now I did. The first entry stared back at me. March 7th, first sign he's altering reality. At the bottom of the page, I added one final line. August 1st, reality restored. The following month, an independent compliance audit team came to test the new system. They weren't internal this time. They were external consultants. Known for tearing companies apart with questions. Perfect. Their lead investigator, Monica Dalton, greeted me with a handshake that felt like an X-ray. "We'll be thorough," she said. "You may not like it." "I'll like it fine," I replied. Truth doesn't mind being checked. They spent a week dissecting every corner of the system. Every rule, every policy, every email. It was exhausting but satisfying, like watching surgeons remove the last trace of infection. Midweek, Monica called me in. "Why so strict?" she asked. "Because flexibility was how the lies survived," I said. She scribbled something in her notes and nodded. The final presentation took place on a Friday. Everyone attended, board members, department heads, staff. The same conference room where I'd once been humiliated. As Monica began her summary, I caught my reflection in the glass wall. Same woman, same room, but everything had changed. "The integrity framework," Monica said, "has improved accuracy by 22% and reduced rework by 40%. More importantly, it's built a culture of transparency." Applause rippled softly. Then she added, "But there's a question. Can truth sustain itself without enforcement?" I stood, planner in hand. "This isn't about enforcement," I said. "It's about clarity. You can't enforce honesty, you can only make it easier than lying." The room went quiet, then nodded as if truth itself had exhaled. Right then, an old guard manager named Alan spoke up. "With all due respect," he said, "your system feels like overkill. We're professionals, not children. Do we really need digital babysitters?" I smiled slightly. "Alan, could you open the shipment variants from last Tuesday?" He frowned, typing. "It's on the shared drive." "Which version?" I asked. He hesitated. "The latest. Please show the edit log," said Monica. He clicked. The projector displayed his screen, edits scrolling in neat rows. At the bottom, edited by Alan B., unauthorized change, 10:42 p.m. The room held its breath. Alan swallowed. "It was a formatting fix," Monica smiled gently. "And that's why this system exists. Transparency protects everyone, including you." A few people chuckled. The tension dissolved. Afterward, Monica shook my hand. "This company's clean," she said. "Keep it that way." The board voted unanimously to adopt my framework company-wide. Even sister branches requested copies. For the first time, the same system that once destroyed me became policy. Later that evening, the CFO stopped by my office. "The board's adding a new role," he said. "Vice President of Integrity Operations." I blinked. "That's dramatic," he grinned. So was surviving him. He left, and the office grew quiet again. I stood there, staring out the window. City lights blinked in steady rhythm like a pulse. For the first time in years, I felt in sync with it. That night, I stayed late. The hallways were empty, the kind of stillness that lets you hear your own heartbeat. I walked to the old conference room, the same one where Grant had turned my co-workers into witnesses of my erasure. It was dark now, chairs neatly pushed in, the ghost of his voice finally gone. I rested my hand on the glass and whispered, "Game over." Then I went back to my office, turned off the lamp, and slipped my planner into my bag. At home, I placed it on the kitchen table beside my husband's tea. He looked up. "You finally closing that chapter?" I smiled. "No, just binding it." He lifted his cup. "To what?" "To peace," I said. He smiled. "And the woman who built it herself." I sat down. "You know, I used to think revenge meant proving him wrong. And now? Now I think it means proving I was right, and moving on." Later, before bed, I opened the planner for the last time. The final page was blank. I took my pen and wrote slowly, October 3rd, peace achieved. Justice served quietly. The gaslight game ended when I stopped playing. Then, beneath it, one more line. If you write the truth long enough, it stops being questioned. I closed the planner and set it on my nightstand. It didn't feel heavy anymore. The next morning, sunlight poured across my desk, catching the reflection of my new nameplate. Laura Bennett, Vice President of Integrity Operations. Below it, the planner rested like a relic from another lifetime. Not a weapon anymore, a witness. Proof that I hadn't imagined it. Proof that sometimes ink outlasts gaslight. I smiled. And as I turned off the light, I whispered, "Let the record show. I won." If anyone's ever made you doubt your own memory or questioned the truth you knew was real, remember this story. Write it down. Keep it safe. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting the truth. It's documenting it until the world can't deny it anymore. This is Laura Bennett. And this was my gaslight game. Subscribe to Office Revenge Files, where every lie meets its timestamp.